The world holds its breath. It's September 1st, 1939. German forces pour across the Polish border, unleashing a new kind of warfare, the blitzkrieg or lightning war. This invasion marks the beginning of the most devastating conflict in human history, the Second World War. But how did we get here? The seeds were sown years earlier, in the ashes of the Great War, with a treaty that left Germany humiliated and economically crippled. From this soil of resentment, a figure named Adolf Hitler and his Nazi party rose, promising a return to glory. By the late 1930s, the world watched with growing anxiety as Germany annexed Austria and then set its sights on Czechoslovakia. Despite desperate attempts at appeasement, war seemed inevitable. The invasion of Poland was the final straw. Britain and France, honoring their pledge to Poland, declared war on Germany. The dominoes began to fall, and soon the globe was engulfed in flames. The initial years were a grim spectacle of Axis dominance. In the spring of 1940, Denmark and Norway fell in quick succession. Then, the German war machine turned west. In a stunning campaign, they bypassed France's heavily fortified Maginot Line, trapping Allied forces at Dunkirk. What followed was a miracle of civilian courage. Hundreds of small boats crossing the English Channel. Evacuating 300,000 soldiers from the beaches under relentless enemy fire. It was a retreat, yes, but it saved an army that would one day return to liberate Europe. With France's surrender, Britain stood alone. Prime Minister Winston Churchill's voice crackled over the radio, defiant and resolute, promising to fight on the beaches. We shall never surrender. The Battle of Britain raged in the skies above. The Royal Air Force, outnumbered but unyielding, battled the Luftwaffe day after day. Their heroic defense prevented a German invasion and proved that the Axis powers were not invincible. It was, as Churchill said, their finest hour. But the war was a global one. In the East, Hitler made a fateful decision. In June 1941, he betrayed his pact with the Soviet Union and launched Operation Bar, the largest land invasion in history. The initial advance was staggering, pushing deep into Soviet territory. Yet, the brutal Russian winter and the fierce, unyielding resistance of the Red Army ground the German war machine to a halt at the gates of Moscow, and the Eastern Front would become a horrific war of attrition, consuming millions of lives and immense resources, ultimately turning the tide in Europe. Meanwhile, across the Pacific, the Empire of Japan was expanding its own sphere of influence. Their ambitions clashed with the United States, which imposed crippling economic sanctions. The breaking point came on a quiet Sunday morning, December 7th, 1941. Japanese carrier planes launched a surprise attack on the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. The assault was devastating, but it failed to destroy America's aircraft carriers, which were out at sea. President Franklin D. Roosevelt declared it a date which will live in infamy, and the sleeping giant was awakened. America officially entered the war, transforming it into a truly global conflict. The entry of the United States shifted the industrial and military balance decisively in favor of the Allies. In North Africa, British and American forces, under commanders like Montgomery and Eisenhower, pushed back Rommel's Afrika Korps. In the Pacific, the tide turned at the Battle of Midway in 1942, a stunning American naval victory that crippled the Japanese fleet. From there, it was a brutal, island-hopping campaign, fighting from Guadalcanal to Iwo Jima, inching ever closer to the Japanese mainland. By Kinodope, the focus shifted to Fortress Europe. The turning point on the Eastern Front came at Stalling. After months of savage, straight-to-street fighting in the ruined city, the German Sixth Army was encircled and forced to surrender in early 1943. It was a catastrophic defeat for Germany, from which they would never fully recover. The Red Army began its long, bloody march westward, toward Berlin. The final chapter in Europe began on June 6, 1944. The largest amphibious invasion in history. Over 150,000 Allied troops landed on the beaches of Normandy, France, under intense German fire. The cost was immense, especially on Omaha Beach. But the foothold was secured. This opened the crucial Second Front, squeezing Hitler's regime between the advancing Allies from the West and the Soviets from the East. Paris was liberated in August, and the push toward Germany continued. A final, desperate German counteroffensive. The Battle of the Bulge failed in the winter of 1944. As Allied forces advanced into Germany from both sides, they uncovered the unspeakable horror of the Holocaust. The liberation of concentration camps like Auschwitz and Dachau revealed the full, systematic evil of the Nazi regime, the genocide of 6 million Jews and millions of others. These images seared themselves into the world's conscience, a permanent scar on human history. In April 1945, with Soviet troops fighting in the streets of Berlin, Adolf Hitler took his own life in his bunker. A week later, Germany surrendered unconditionally. Vid de Victory in Europe they sparked massive celebrations. But the war was not yet over. In the Pacific, the fighting raged on. Despite devastating firebombing raids on its cities, Japan refused to surrender. U.S. President Harry Truman, faced with the prospect of a bloody invasion of the Japanese mainland that could cost 1 million American lives, made a momentous and controversial decision. In August 1945, atomic bombs were dropped on the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The destruction was absolute. Days later, Emperor Hirohito announced Japan's surrender. World War II was over. It lasted 6 years and claimed the lives of an estimated 70 to 85 million people, civilians and soldiers alike. It redrew the map of the world, shattered empires, and gave birth to the nuclear age. From its ashes rose new global powers, the United States and the Soviet Union, setting the stage for the Cold War. The stories of World War II are not just dates and battles. They are stories of incredible courage, unimaginable suffering, profound sacrifice, and the enduring struggle between tyranny and freedom. Remembering this history is not just about looking back. It is about understanding the world we live in today and the price that was paid for the peace so many of us take for granted. Thank you for joining us on this journey through one of history's most defining moments. If you found this documentary meaningful, please like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into the events that shaped our world.